It was a dark and stormy night, and the small town of Oakridge was enveloped in a heavy, almost suffocating atmosphere. The sound of raindrops hitting the car's windshield was the only noise breaking the silence. Inside the vehicle, Sarah Donovan, a woman with a serene appearance, was behind the wheel, driving home after another long day of work in the big city. In the back seat, her 7-year-old son, Lucas, was sound asleep in his safety seat. Sarah loved her son more than anything, and every day, she worked hard to give him the best life possible. She worked at a company in New York City, about an hour's drive from Oakridge. Because of this, she had decided to enroll Lucas in a school near her office so she could be close by in case of any emergency. They had no other family. Sarah was a single mother, and Lucas had never known his father. The bond between them was strong, almost symbiotic. The drives home were routine and usually peaceful. But that night, the weather was particularly hostile. The rain was pouring down, making it hard for Sarah to see. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to maintain control of the car. Lucas, oblivious to the danger, continued to sleep, his dreams filling his young, innocent mind. Suddenly, the unexpected happened. A huge truck, attempting to overtake another vehicle, lost control and crashed violently into the side of Sarah's car. The impact was devastating. The car spun out of control, flipping over several times before coming to a stop, upside down, at the side of the road. Sarah, dazed and with her head pounding in pain, tried to get her bearings. She could smell gasoline and taste blood in her mouth. Her first instinct was to look back for Lucas, but the seatbelt and the position of the overturned car made it difficult for her to move. "Lucas, are you okay?" she managed to shout, her voice trembling with panic. The boy, still strapped into his car seat, was awake but in shock. He wanted to cry, but fear paralyzed him. "Mommy, I'm scared," was all he could say. "Stay calm, my love. Everything will be okay," Sarah tried to reassure him, though she wasn't sure she believed her own words. Time seemed to slow down, each second dragging painfully as she waited for help. After what felt like an eternity, the ambulance finally arrived. The truck driver who had caused the accident was already there, feeling guilty and desperate, having called for help himself. He muttered apologies, but the words barely registered with Sarah. All she could think about was Lucas, keeping him safe. The paramedics worked quickly to extract the mother and son from the wrecked car. Lucas, miraculously, appeared to be unharmed. Sarah, though conscious, felt a growing pain in her abdomen, a sign that something was terribly wrong. They were rushed to the hospital, where a medical team was ready to treat them. Lucas was examined and, to everyone's relief, was physically unscathed, though traumatized by the experience. Sarah, however, was taken directly to surgery, where doctors fought to stop internal bleeding caused by the impact. Meanwhile, Lucas was cared for by a young resident, Dr. Henry Walsh. It was the first time Henry had faced such a delicate situation. He tried to distract Lucas by offering him a sandwich and ice cream, but the boy's mind was solely on his mother. "Is she going to be okay, doctor?" Lucas asked, his eyes filled with tears. Henry, unsure of how to respond, simply patted the boy's head and said, "The doctors are doing their best. Let's hope for good news, okay?" The hours dragged on painfully until finally, the chief surgeon emerged from the operating room with a grave expression. Sarah had lost a lot of blood, and despite all efforts, she didn't make it. The news was delivered to Lucas with as much gentleness as possible, but the boy was devastated. He was now alone in the world. Sarah's funeral was simple and quiet, held on a gray, cold day. Only a few people attended, mostly co-workers who felt compassion for Lucas, now an orphan. Dr. Henry was there, offering support to the boy he barely knew but felt an inexplicable connection to. Lucas, dressed in black clothes that seemed too big for his small body, stood firm beside his mother's grave. As the coffin was lowered into the ground, he felt as if his heart was being buried along with it. "I promise, Mommy," he murmured through his tears, "I'll always visit you. I'll never forget your last words." The days that followed were difficult for Lucas. He was taken to an orphanage, a place that felt cold and desolate, far from the comfort and love he had known with his mother. His first nights in the new environment were filled with nightmares. He constantly dreamed of the accident, reliving the terror of the car flipping over and his mother's absence. The other children at the orphanage were not welcoming. Lucas, the newcomer, was often the target of cruel jokes. "Look, it's the crybaby. Still thinking about your mommy?" they would say, laughing at his expense. The orphanage staff, overworked and indifferent, rarely intervened. During the day, the children were taken to a nearby park where they could play and burn off energy. But Lucas, realizing that the park was close to the cemetery where his mother was buried, began to slip away from the group whenever he could, using the opportunity to fulfill the promise he had made at the funeral. He would sit by Sarah's grave and talk to her as if she were still alive. He would tell her about the difficult days at the orphanage, about the children who teased him, and how much he missed her. It was as if, there, he could feel her presence, hear her laughter, and imagine what it would be like if she were still by his side. "I don't have anyone else, Mommy," Lucas would confess between sobs. "I don't want to live without you anymore. Please take me with you. I can't stand being alone." On one of these visits, something unexpected happened. While Lucas was crying, he felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. He turned around, startled, and saw a woman with a kind smile. "Are you okay, my dear? I saw you were crying and thought you might need some help," said the woman in a soft voice. Lucas tried to hold back his tears and explain what he was feeling, but the words wouldn't come. The woman, sensing his struggle, sat beside him and enveloped him in a comforting embrace. "My name is Emma," she said. "I'm here visiting my son's grave. He passed away a few years ago. He was a little older than you." Emma's presence was a relief for Lucas. For the first time since his mother's death, he felt that someone understood him. He told her about the accident, about how he had lost his mother, and how he had run away from the orphanage to visit her. Emma listened attentively, without interrupting, allowing him to vent. When the conversation ended, Emma offered to take Lucas back to the orphanage. On the way, they passed by an amusement park, where Lucas was captivated by the lights and rides. Seeing the shy smile on the boy's face, Emma encouraged him to take a ride on the carousel. As the carousel spun, Lucas felt a joy he hadn't experienced in a long time. But when he got off the ride, something unexpected happened. He stepped on a thick wallet that had fallen to the ground. When he opened it, he saw several $100 bills, more money than he had ever seen. For a brief moment, he thought about using the money to run away from the orphanage and start a new life on his own. But then, the promise he had made to his mother came back to his mind, to be honest and take care of others. Without a second thought, Lucas handed the wallet to a nearby security guard, explaining that he had found it on the ground. Emma, who was watching from a distance, smiled proudly at the boy's action. She knew that he was a special boy, someone with a pure heart, despite all the adversities. That night, before leaving him at the orphanage, Emma made a promise to Lucas. "I will come back to see you, Lucas, and I will do my best to help you find a new family that loves you as much as your mother did." Lucas, holding back tears, just nodded. He didn't know if he should believe it or not, but something in Emma's voice made him feel a hope that he thought he had lost forever. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. Emma kept her promise to visit Lucas whenever she could, bringing small gifts and spending time with him. Gradually, a strong bond was formed between the two. Emma became a motherly figure for Lucas, filling, even if only partially, the void left by the loss of his mother. However, Emma's visits did not go unnoticed by the other staff at the orphanage, who began to question her intentions. "Why is this woman so interested in an orphan she barely knows?" they whispered among themselves. Some believed that Emma was just trying to cope with the loss of her own child, while others thought there was more to her actions. One evening, after another visit, Emma was about to leave when she was approached by the orphanage director, Mr. Hopkins. He was a stern man, known for his strict temperament. "Emma, can I speak with you for a moment?" he asked, his deep voice echoing down the empty corridor. Emma nodded, following him to his office. There, the director observed her for a few seconds before speaking. "I've noticed that you've been spending a lot of time with Lucas," he began, choosing his words carefully. "And while I appreciate that someone cares about our boys, I have to ask, what are your intentions with him?" Emma, though surprised by the direct question, remained calm. "Mr. Hopkins, I've grown attached to Lucas. He recently lost his mother, and I see a lot of my own son in him. I just want to make sure he's okay, that he doesn't feel so alone." The director watched her for a few more moments before continuing. "I understand your concern, Emma, but we need to think about the boy's long-term well-being. He needs stability, a permanent family. It wouldn't be fair to let him create expectations of something that may never happen." Emma felt a pang of guilt. She knew the director was right. Lucas needed more than occasional visits. He needed a family that could give him love and security. But there was a problem. Emma was a widow and lived alone. Though she wanted to adopt Lucas, she knew the process would be complicated and lengthy. "Mr. Hopkins," Emma began with determination, "I would like to start the process of adopting Lucas. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to give him a home." The director observed her with surprise, but also with a certain respect. He knew that Emma was sincere and that her decision came from the heart. "Very well, Emma," he finally said. "We'll start the process. But you must be aware that this will demand a lot from you and Lucas, and there's no guarantee that it will be approved." Emma nodded. She was prepared to face any obstacle that might come her way. All she wanted was to give Lucas the chance to be happy again. The adoption process was long and exhausting. Emma had to go through countless interviews, fill out endless forms, and prove that she had the financial and emotional capacity to care for Lucas. During this time, she and Lucas grew even closer, creating a bond that went beyond mere affection. But it wasn't all easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when Emma wondered if she was doing the right thing. And there were also Lucas's fears. He was afraid of getting attached to Emma, fearing that she would also leave him, just as his mother had been taken from him. These fears manifested as nightmares, sleepless nights, and crying fits that broke Emma's heart. "Lucas," she said one night, holding him in her arms after another nightmare, "I will never leave you. I promise, just as I promised your mother the day we met, that I will always be here for you. I know you're scared, but I will be here to protect you, to love you, and to give you the life you deserve." Lucas, still sobbing, looked at Emma with eyes full of hope and fear. "Do you promise, Emma?" he asked, his voice breaking with emotion. "I promise, my dear," Emma replied, holding him closer. "I promise." Finally, after months of waiting and uncertainty, the decision about the adoption was made. Emma received the news that the court had approved her application to adopt Lucas. She could hardly contain her joy when she received the phone call from the lawyer, informing her that Lucas was now officially her son. At the orphanage, Lucas waited anxiously for Emma's return. He knew that the day was important, but he wasn't sure what to expect. When Emma arrived, her face lit up by a radiant smile. Lucas ran into her arms, feeling a mix of relief and happiness that he hadn't felt in a long time. "Lucas," Emma began, her voice choked with emotion, "you are officially my son now. We're going home together." Emma's words hit Lucas with a wave of happiness that he had never felt before. He clung to her, tears streaming down his face, but this time, they were tears of joy. "I love you, Mom," he whispered, his heart finally finding peace. Emma, holding Lucas tightly, responded with equal emotion. "I love you too, Lucas, and I promise that I will do everything to make you happy." The days that followed were pure joy. Lucas and Emma began living as a true family. They decorated Lucas's room together, chose a new school, and spent entire afternoons at the park, playing ball and laughing like never before. But despite all the happiness, there were still challenges. Lucas had to adapt to his new life, his new school, and his new responsibilities. Emma also faced the challenge of being a mother again after the devastating loss of her son. But together, they overcame each obstacle, supporting each other every step of the way. With time, Lucas began to open up more, fully trusting Emma. He started making new friends at school, getting involved in extracurricular activities, and living the life of a normal child, something he thought would never be possible again. For Emma, seeing Lucas flourish was the greatest reward. She knew the road had been tough, full of ups and downs, but she also knew that every moment of pain had been worth it. She had found in Lucas not just a son, but a reason to move forward, to live and love again. On Lucas's first birthday as her son, Emma prepared a special surprise. She organized a small party at home with Lucas's friends, balloons, and a big chocolate cake, Lucas's favorite. When it was time to sing happy birthday, Emma brought out a small box wrapped in colorful paper. "Lucas, I have a special gift for you," she said, handing the box to the boy. Lucas carefully unwrapped it, revealing a small silver locket with an inscription. "To Lucas, the son I always dreamed of having. With love, Mom." Tears filled Lucas's eyes as he held the locket. He knew that this gift meant so much more than words could express. It was proof that he would never be alone again, that he would always have a family to call his own. "Thank you, Mom," Lucas said, hugging Emma tightly. "I'll never take it off." And so, Emma and Lucas began a new life together, overcoming the past and building a future filled with love and hope. They knew that no matter what the future held, they would always have each other. And that, for both of them, was all that mattered.